Okay, today is the 2nd of August, and we are on the 21st Samyutta, Bhikkhu Samyutta. Now we come to 21.10. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. On that occasion, a certain monk named Elder was a lone dweller and spoke in praise of dwelling alone. He entered the village for alms alone. He returned alone. He sat alone in private. He undertook walking meditation alone. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, "Here, Venerable Sir, there is a certain monk named Elder who is a lone dweller and who speaks in praise of dwelling alone." Then the Blessed One addressed a certain monk thus, "Come, monk, tell the monk Elder in my name that the teacher calls him." "Yes, Venerable Sir," that monk replied. And he went to the Venerable Elder and told him, "The teacher calls you friend Elder." "Yes, friend," the Venerable Elder replied. And he approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to him, "Is it true, Elder, that you are a lone dweller and speak in praise of dwelling alone?" "Yes, Venerable Sir." "But how, Elder, are you a lone dweller, and how do you speak in praise of dwelling alone?" "Here, Venerable Sir, I enter the village for alms alone. I return alone. I sit alone in private, and I undertake walking meditation alone. It is in such a way that I am a lone dweller and speak in praise of dwelling alone." And the Buddha said, "That is a way of dwelling alone, Elder. I do not deny this. But as to how dwelling alone is fulfilled in detail, listen to that and attend closely. I will speak." "Yes, Venerable Sir." "And how, Elder, is dwelling alone fulfilled in detail?" "Here, Elder, what lies in the past has been abandoned. What lies in the future has been relinquished. And desire and lust for present forms of individual existence has been thoroughly removed. It is in such a way, Elder, that dwelling alone is fulfilled in detail." This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said this: "The Wise One, all conqueror, all knower, among all things unsullied, with all cast off, liberated in the destruction of craving, I call that person one who dwells alone." That's the end of the sutta. So here, this monk by the name of Elder, he kept to himself, and so he claimed to be a lone dweller. But the Buddha said, that is true, but that is not fulfilled in detail. And the Buddha said, dwelling alone actually is to relinquish the past and don't crave for future rebirth, future existence. And even the present forms of individual existence has been thoroughly removed. Desire and lust for it has been thoroughly removed. In other words, one has totally let go all desire for existence. Then there's nothing to occupy the mind. Then the Buddha says that is dwelling alone. So the Buddha is trying to say dwelling alone is not so much the physical aspect, although the physical aspect is one aspect. But the Buddha says the mind, being alone in the mind, not having a mind that is occupied with this or that. That is really dwelling alone. This dwelling alone, sometimes it is the Pali word is viveka, seclusion, and the Buddha and the suttas talk about kaya viveka and chitta viveka. Kaya viveka is like this monk, bodily secluded. He lives in a secluded place, for example, in a cave or high up in the hills or in the forest alone. That is kaya viveka. Or even if he stays in a monastery with other monks, He does not socialize with other monks. He keeps aloof. That is Kaya Viveka. But Chitta Viveka is a higher standard. Chitta Viveka is mental seclusion. That means your mind is detached. Detached from what? Detached from the world of the six senses. So, because the world of the six senses is dukkha, is also a source of a lot of contact. If you have eye contact, you have ear contact, you have nose contact, tongue, body, and mind contact. Then because of contact, feelings arise, and then thoughts, and all that. The mind keeps going. So mental seclusion is meditating and going deep into your mind, attaining samadhi. When you attain samadhi, then slowly the world of the six senses withdraws away from you. So you are going back, as Ajahn Chah says, you're going back to our original home, going back deep into our mind. And Arahants constantly abide in that way, Chitta Viveka, secluded from the world. So the Buddha says that is more superior. 21.11, that's Sabbati. Then the Venerable Mahakapina approached the Blessed One. The Blessed One saw him coming in the distance and addressed the monks thus: "Monks, do you see that monk coming, fair-skinned, thin, with a prominent nose?" "Yes, Venerable Sir. That monk is of great psychic power and might. It is not easy to find an attainment which that monk has not already attained. And he is one who, by realizing it for himself with direct knowledge, in this very life enters and dwells in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the household life into homelessness." This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said, "The Khattiya is the best among people." Khattiya is a warrior clan, noble clan. Khattiya is the best among people, for those whose standard is the clan. For one accomplished in knowledge and conduct is best among devas and humans. The sun shines by day, the moon glows at night. The Khattiya shines clad in armor. The meditative Brahmana shines, the holy man shines. But all the time, day and night, the Buddha shines with glory. It's the end of the sutta. So in this sutta, the Buddha is telling his disciples, look at this Mahakapina, he's one of the great Arahants with mighty psychic power. This one, Mahakapina, is fair-skinned, he's thin with a prominent nose. So he's one of the four monks, if you remember, when we read the Samyutta about the Brahma, how the Buddha flew to the Brahma heavens and emitted light, and four of his disciples came and sat in mid-air below the Buddha, who were then Mahamoggallana, Anuruddha, Mahakapina, Mahakassapa. These are the most powerful Arahants. Now we have just finished the second book of the Samyutta Nikaya. Now we are coming into the third book of the Samyutta Nikaya, one of the most important books in all the Nikayas. It's called the Khandha Vaga, the book of the aggregates. Khandha stands for aggregates, meaning the five aggregates. Five aggregates are the body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. And these five aggregates we associate with the self. Either as I or mine, or I am in the aggregates, or the aggregates are inside me. Now this Khandha Vaga, the name of the book is the Khandha Vaga. It's named after the first Samyutta, which dominates the entire collection. The Vaga contains this book 13 Samyuttas, but none of the minor ones even approaches the length of the Khandha Samyutta. The first Samyutta is the Khandha Samyutta, occupies in the Pali text 188 pages out of the total 278 pages of the book, which means 2/3 of this book is taken up by one Samyutta itself, the Khandha Vaga. And then not only that, there are 3 other Samyuttas inside this book, which also have to do with the 5 aggregates. So practically this whole book has to do with the 5 aggregates, Khandha Samyutta. This Khandha Samyutta contains 159 suttas. And these suttas on the 5 aggregates are the most important of all the Buddha's discourses. Because the best way to see anatta, to attain liberation, is to contemplate on the 5 aggregates. There are another 2 ways, is to contemplate on the 6 sense basis, the 6 sense basis. Another one is to contemplate on paticca samuppada, dependent origination. But generally, the Buddha says that contemplating the 5 aggregates is the most important. So that's why I say that the suttas here are the most important of all the Buddha suttas. And inside this Khandha Samyutta, the first Samyutta, we find the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. Anatta Lakkhana Sutta was spoken by the Buddha to his 5, the earliest 5 disciples. And when he spoke this sutta, Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, about the non-self characteristic of the 5 khandhas, then all of them attain liberation. So you see that's how important it is. And if we understand the 5 aggregates, we will at least, even if you don't become arahant, so you become a stream enterer. These 5 aggregates are called Pancha Khandha. Pancha meaning 5, Khandha is the aggregates. And generally, we also refer to them as the Pancha Upadana Khandha. Pancha is 5, Upadana is clinging or grasping or attachment, and Khandha is aggregates. So Pancha Upadana Khandha is the 5 aggregates of attachment, because generally we attach to these 5 aggregates. Now, in this notes by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, he says, examination of the 5 aggregates plays a critical role in the Buddha's teaching for at least 4 reasons. First, because the 5 aggregates are the ultimate referent of the first noble truth, the noble truth of suffering. And since all 4 truths revolve around suffering, understanding the aggregates is essential for understanding the 4 noble truths as a whole. You must remember, in the suttas, it is mentioned, when the Buddha attained enlightenment, he contemplated on the 4 noble truths and attained enlightenment. Okay? And the Buddha also mentioned in one of the suttas that it is not because of not understanding the 4 noble truths that he had been going through the round of rebirths again and again. And only when you understand the 4 noble truths, you get out of samsara, the round of rebirths. So understanding the 4 noble truths is very, very important. Now, in the first noble truth, in the description of suffering, the Buddha said, what is suffering? If I remember correctly, something like this. It says, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, dying is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. To be separated from our loved ones is suffering. To associate with those we dislike is suffering. And then ultimately he says, in brief, the 5 aggregates of attachment are suffering. So these 5 aggregates are the source of suffering. So when you understand the 5 aggregates, then you understand the first noble truth of suffering. And Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi continues. Second, because the 5 aggregates are the objective domain of clinging, and as such contribute to the causal origination of future suffering. So here he's saying that the object of clinging is the 5 aggregates. So and they are the cause of future suffering. So if you understand the five aggregates, then you understand the cause of future suffering, which refers to the second noble truth. Third, because the removal of clinging is necessary for the attainment of release, and clinging must be removed from the objects around which its tentacles are wrapped, namely the five aggregates. So here he's saying the object of clinging is the five aggregates. So if you want to remove the clinging, you got to understand the five aggregates. And fourth, because the removal of clinging is achieved by wisdom, and the kind of wisdom needed is precisely clear insight into the real nature of the aggregates. So you need wisdom to remove clinging. And wisdom here means understanding the nature of the five aggregates. Remember when we went through the dependent origination of suffering, the first cause was ignorance. And ignorance is not understanding the cause of suffering. And the cause of suffering is these five aggregates. So when you understand the five aggregates, then you eliminate that ignorance. And that is the start of the chain, eliminating the chain of suffering. Now these five aggregates, the first one is the body. What is the body? The body is the four great elements and the form derived from them. When we say body, we mean our body and we mean other bodies. External to us, for example, my son, my daughter, my wife, my husband, all that, I and mine. And then the condition for the continuation of the body is nutriment, edible food. And then the second aggregate is feeling. Feeling refers to the 6 classes of feeling. Feeling born of contact to the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. And the origin of feeling is contact. Contact is the condition for feeling to arise. Third one is perception. Perception means perception of forms, sounds, odors, tastes, tactiles and mental phenomena. So perception is like you see something and you say this is yellow color. That is your perception of it. And then you may see, that is blue. But somebody else who might be colorblind will perceive differently. So perception is not absolute. For example, I perceive a certain person to be very pleasant, but his enemy will perceive him to be a very nasty person. Or somebody perceives somebody else as beautiful or handsome, but another person looking may not perceive him or her as beautiful or handsome. So that is perception. Now the condition for arising of perception is also contact. When you have contact at the 6 sense doors, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind, feeling arises followed by perception and later followed by volition. So the fourth one is volition. The 6 classes of volition. Volition regarding forms, sounds, odors, tastes, tactiles and mental phenomena. That means there is contact at the 6 sense doors. And then, as I explained just now, feeling, perception and later volition arises. So the condition for volition is also contact. And the fifth one is consciousness. The 6 classes of consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind consciousness. And the condition for arising of consciousness is mentality and materiality, nama-rupa. Because when nama-rupa arises, vijnana, consciousness also arises. And the same the other way. When consciousness arises, mentality and materiality also arises. Now, this ordinary people of the world, we have this Sakkaya Ditthi. And this Sakkaya Ditthi is eliminated when you become an Arya, when you attain Sotapanna, there are three factors that are eliminated. One of them is Sakkaya Ditthi. What is Sakkaya Ditthi? Sakkaya Ditthi is translated as identity view. That means you identify yourself with the body and the mind. You take the body and the mind to be I, the self, or mind. So, when you, here it says, this is the difference between the uninstructed worldling or ordinary person, Asuttava Putujana, and the instructed noble disciple, Suttava Arya Savaka. Suttava means instructed or learned. So, an ordinary person who does not learn the Dhamma is still an ordinary person. But a person who listens to the Dhamma and understands the Dhamma, then he becomes an instructed noble disciple. So, to break this identity view and become an Arya, you have got to understand the nature of these five aggregates. The five aggregates, as I mentioned just now, is basically body and mind. The first one, body, is body, and then the other four is the mind, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. Sometimes some people make the mistake of thinking that Nama Rupa is body and mind. Nama Rupa is not body and mind. Nama Rupa is the object of consciousness, because when consciousness arises, it must be conscious of an object, and that object is Nama Rupa, and it consists of two parts. One is the physical part and one is the mental part. So the physical phenomena is Nama, and the physical phenomena is Rupa, and the mental phenomena is Nama. So that's why I mentioned that because of the perception that there is a self, so we feel that I exist or I am. And this perception of I am or I exist is that link called Bhava, independent origination. The other time we went through the dependent origination. Bhava is translated as being. That means you have this perception that I am a being, I exist. So in the dependent origination, we find that Bhava conditions jati, birth or rebirth. So once you have the perception that I exist, then you see yourself coming into the world, that is birth. So to eliminate Bhava, we have to see how that I exist comes about. And we will slowly see when we read the suttas that they are connected with the five aggregates. Now, if you attain right view, then you're on the way to become Sotapanna. When you attain right view, you have entered the stream. Right? And to attain right view, the Sutta Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 43, tells us that the condition for right view is to hear the voice of another. That means to hear the voice of a teacher teaching you the Dhamma. So actually we need a good teacher to guide us to attain right view. Now the best teacher in the world is the Samma Sambuddha. Right? And lucky for us, fortunately for us, his voice is recorded in all these suttas, which have been transmitted 2,500 years down to us. So we are so fortunate that these words of the Buddha are here to guide us. So if we take the trouble to investigate these suttas, listen carefully and try to understand, then the chances of attaining right view and becoming a Sotapanna are very great. Now, this notes by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi says that clinging to the five aggregates occurs in two principal modes, which we might call appropriation and identification. In clinging to the aggregates, one either grasps them with desire and lust, chandaraga, and assumes possession of them, or one identifies with them, taking them as the basis for conceit of our views about one's real self. In a phrase often met with in the Khandha Sangyutta, we are prone to think of the aggregates as, this is mine, this I am, this is myself. Here the notion, this is mine, represents the act of appropriation, a function of craving. The notions, this I am and this is myself, represent two types of identification, the former expressive of conceit and the latter of views. So now, briefly, I will talk a bit about these five aggregates. Why is it that we associate the five aggregates with the self? First one is body. If your body is beautiful, you say, I am beautiful. If your body is tall, you say, I am tall. If the body is sick, you say, I am sick. Or you say, so you see, we tend to associate the body with that I or mind. For example, my son. This your offspring, you say, my son. This body is my son. This daughter, this is my daughter. So we either associate body with the I or mind. The second one is feeling. When pleasant feeling arises, you say, I am happy. When unpleasant feeling arises, you say, I am suffering, or I am angry, etc. So it's very easy. You can see easily how feelings also we associate with the self. That perception, like I perceive this to be yellow. I perceive this person to be a nasty person. I perceive this man to be handsome or whatever. So this is also the perception also we identify with my perception. And then fourth one is volition. Volition is using your free will to decide to do this or not to do that. So when a decision is made, our mind works like a computer because of certain conditions, and then the volition is created. So we think that I decided to do this, I decide to do that. But actually, Buddha says there's no I inside. Just like Buddha gives the example of a banana tree. You start peeling the layers of the banana tree trunk. In the end, you find there's nothing inside, no core. So similarly, the Buddha says when a decision is made, you think I want this, I don't want that. Actually, there's no I inside. So there is volition. And then the fifth, consciousness. Consciousness, the Buddha says, is like a conjurer. Conjures up one dream after another. One lifetime you see yourself as a human being, and then if you lead your life skillfully, the next you see yourself in a rebirth as a deva or a devi, etc. So consciousness is conjurer, conjures up all these magic shows. So later, as we go through the suttas, you find these are mentioned. So basically, that is about the five khandhas. So always remember, the five khandhas refers to the body, and the last four is the mind, body and mind. And we always associate the body and the mind to be I or mine. Whenever we refer to ourselves in a past life, we say, oh, that person, like that Indian man, was me in the past life. So you associate that body to be yourself. In that lifetime, I experienced happiness or I experienced suffering, or that feeling also you associate with yourself. Similarly for the other aggregates. Or when you refer to yourself now, or when you refer to yourself in the future life, you always refer to this body and the mind as I or mine, as a self.